What's going on, gang? Well, I'm kind of using this weekend to install something that I've been wanting to install for a while, and now that I got my new roof rack that I think I'm going to use for quite a while now, because I'm honestly pretty happy with it, I'm going to go ahead and get it installed. However, as with any electrical project that it seems like I do, I run into all kinds of issues that I did not account for. So I want to show you folks kind of some of the issues that I'm finding. So the plan for this weekend, guys, was to install these 3-inch NOVSIGHT Halo Series fog lights. I'm going to install them as like chase lights though, because I want them on the back of my tent shooting out backwards, so I can use them at camp, turn them on, have the amber light kind of light up around the back side of my truck. But these are really cool. I picked these because they have like an actual amber or white LED. You can take off this cover, and they don't have an amber LED, they just have this amber lens. So you can either be a white, this is the fog pattern, a white, or this amber. But I'm running into all kinds of issues, and let me kind of show you where I'm at with this, and then hopefully by the end of this video I'll be able to show you folks the final product, so I can take this out here this weekend to see how they work. But here's where we stand right now. So here's the plan, and here are these lights up close in case you couldn't see them under the shadow, but they're really pretty slick little lights. So what I'm going to be using is, and this is the box for these halos, pretty nice little box too, not that it matters, but you can tell they care. So what I'm going to be actually using though for the entire back of my truck is this 8-gang Nilight switch panel. I've actually even went ahead and installed some LED lights running across my bed rails that I've got to get wired in, but that's next. But this is going to kind of eliminate a whole bunch of relays and a bunch of extra wiring, and in fact on these lights I'm able to eliminate all of this stuff. So these two lights are actually supposed to plug in. I cut the cord right there, and then this comes out, and then you got to attach this to batteries, and then you've got a switch that I don't need. So using this switch panel, I can toss all that. Don't need it. Towards the end, I'll go ahead and show you folks how I'm going to do all this wiring, but there's 4 main wires on this light. Red, black, there's a blue way down there that I cut that I'm not going to use. This blue wire right here is actually for the white halo that I'm not going to use. That yellow is the amber halo, and of course the red is going to be the main LEDs, the floods. But I was able to get rid of all of that wiring harness to use this. Now where my problem arises, guys, is that this would be a lot easier if I didn't ever intend on taking this tent or this rack off my truck. But since I take it off pretty much weekly, it's not quite as simple. I can't just wire it and leave it there. So I have to make it to where I can unplug these wires easily, so I can take this rack off, which poses a lot of problems in terms of hiding the wires and just making it accessible to where I can't actually take them off when I need to. So once this is all said and done, I'm going to show you folks how I think I'm going to do it. It might not be permanent, but I just want to get these things wired up to use this weekend. But one of the problems that I've ran into is that these slots right here on my cross rails, all I have are M8 square nuts that'll slide in here just perfect. I've actually got one in here already, but the bolts were actually too long because the bolts were hitting this light when I went to go install them. The bolts were just too long, so I had to get my grinder, get a cutting disc on it, actually cut these bolts shorter so they're not poking down and hitting the light, so I can tighten them up. So that's problem number 1 I think I have solved. Number 2, since these crossbars are so thick, this really doesn't have anything to do with lighting, but since these crossbars are so thick, the standard tent brackets that I have, they're too small. So I ordered some bigger tent brackets from, I think, Inspired Overland. They're supposed to be here today. So I've got to take this tent off. I've got to loosen up these bolts here so I can get these square nuts pushed through, because I'm going to install these lights on the other side facing out somewhere up here in that area facing this way. So I've got to get the tent partially taken off. I've got to undo the crossbars, lift them up, push those bolts through so they're in the center of this rack right here. Then we get to tackle all of the wiring. So as far as that's concerned, so everything in the back of my truck, in terms of lighting and hopefully my cooler, I'm going to use this 100 amp hour battery. Probably going to get a box for it, make it nice and neat, put it in the box so it's waterproof, even though these batteries are somewhat waterproof. But I'm thinking 100 amp hours is going to be more than enough to run LED lighting, a cooler, whatever, for basically one night. So I'm going to go get this put in the truck, and that's going to end up getting pushed all the way back to the corner somehow. So now here's the fun part, is trying to figure out how to get all this wiring done, because again, I'm going to take all this stuff off, so I got to figure out how to kind of hide it, how to make it look not so jerry-rigged. And it's not to mention it's 24 degrees outside. My hands are frozen, so that always makes it a good time when you're trying to deal with little tiny wires and all these little connections. So, but I figured my latest camping video I would have already had these lights installed, so I wanted to come back and show you folks all the issues that I had trying to get these things put on. But we'll check back in hopefully when a little bit more is completed. All right, well, I got them bolted up to the crossbar. The other thing I forgot to mention is that the bracket on these lights were only drilled out for a 1/4x20 bolt, and I don't have 1/4x20 T-bolts to fit in this channel. So I actually drilled out the quarter hole to a 5/16 inch hole so I could fit that M8 bolt through here. So yet some more fun. Now my hands are frozen. Now it's time to figure out how to get some of this wiring somewhat hid. So I have a feeling lots of wire ties and some imagination is about to happen. And I'm frozen, got my heated jacket on, and it's still cold out here. All right, plenty of wire ties, different sizes. I don't really like using wire ties, but again, since I'm going to be taking this thing on and off, I can't really utilize any of the tent since I take the tent off of the rack itself. So normally I would probably stick this wire up in the track of the tent, but that's not going to work in my situation. So wire ties it is. All right, well, I don't know, 2, 3, 8 hours later, kind of getting to where the wiring at least is working with the light. So this is kind of this is a Frankenstein of a wiring job right now. I was just testing it out, but I think I'm going to end up using SAE connectors as a quick disconnect from my tent to the actual, you know, in my truck bed. So right now I've got this going on. This is going down behind my bed and then coming out from under there and then going into my switch panel, then going into my battery. The lights are all connected in this loom coming down to an SAE. So in theory, I'll be able to just unplug that SAE and everything will work. So far, I mean, obviously this is a mess, but I've got the actual switch installed right here, very loosely, but everything's working. So hit that switch, we got lights, and then this switch is going to run my bed lights. And obviously I don't want the rainbow color, but I've got to go change that with the remote. But everything is working, so I'm gonna get this thing tidied up a little bit more, and then we're gonna see what this looks like at night out here in the driveway. I'm gonna go get warmed up for a little bit. All right, so it's been a day. I got too cold yesterday. It was kind of miserable out here, trying to get all this wiring done with frozen hands. So I finally got everything kind of buttoned down. Again, where I'm running into problems is the fact that I'm going to be taking all this stuff on and off. So I can't really wire it permanently. So I think what I've got right now is stage 1. I'm sure once I take this thing out a couple of times, I'm going to find a better way to do it. But for right now, this is going to at least work. So I've got the halos installed, which I did test out last night, and they are absolutely great for lighting up the back, especially in the morning when I have to leave so early. It's going to work out great. Of course, I'll show that to you folks when it gets dark. I've got the Nilight switch panel installed here. I've got my cargo lights, which are going to be the bed lights here. I've got my amber. These are going to be the halos for those, the kind of the DRL halo ring lights, and then the light cubes themselves. I got an underglow here. This is going to eventually be, I'm going to put some underglow lighting on my tent. This should be pretty cool. I wired up a fridge. So I've got this little guy right here tied into my switch panel that's got a 12-volt cigarette style output. So I just come in here and hit the fridge, and I can power my fridge through that battery in the back. And then I've got a couple of spares, aux 1, aux 2, and then a blank. So this worked out really well. This is attached to my Molly panel. So that's perfect. I got all the wiring going up underneath, and in fact I can go ahead and turn on these cargo lights. And right now I've got them on red, and then I've got the little remote that can change all the colors down here tied to my little power station right here. So works out pretty cool. Now this right here is extremely temporary. I've got to get a box to store all this in, but for right now I do have it kind of tied down with a strap to one of my cleats down here. So this at least is not gonna go anywhere. But the switch panel here is great. I wish, these things are awesome. Wish I would have been using these a long time ago. They really do make wiring a lot easier than individual relays and individual fuses. Everything's kind of built into this. And then I've got my 100 amp hour Cyclenbatt battery. It is fused back there in the back. I do have this. I'm going to eventually put in the box or even wire it directly up to the battery, but it's just a little 2 amp LiPo 4 charger that I can keep this battery topped off once I get to some kind of AC source. Even one of my power stations could top this thing off. So I'm going to end up putting this in probably the box that I'm going to build to keep all of this thing underneath here, nice and tidy. But all the wiring's pretty good. Could be better. This is what I've really got to kind of figure out how to make it better. But basically these two halo lights are, all the wiring is in this loom right here, and it's just like Velcro. So when I do take the tent off, I just undo this Velcro and this loom comes down. And then I've got that coming here, which is all the connections. And then this is going down underneath and then eventually coming out from underneath there and going in here into the switch panel. So the only thing I really got to figure out to make it look nice and tidy is how to hide that a little bit better. I don't really know what to do yet. I'm thinking about maybe doing some Velcro strips here and here, and then finding something to cover this. I don't know, but my OCD, I don't like that, but really it's kind of the only option that I have. So that's kind of what I've been working on this weekend. Haven't really worked on the truck camper, and it seems like months and months. So I've got a lot of cool things that I want to do. Again, I'm going to install some under lighting to this tent, which should put off a really awesome glow at night. I ran out of time this weekend, but you guys probably already saw this on my last camping trip. But I'm going to swing back here in a few hours tonight when it gets dark, and I'll show you these halo lights and how much they do actually light up the back. So I think it turned out pretty cool. So we'll see you soon. Obviously plenty of light for what I'm going to need it for. And I think the bed lights turned out pretty cool too. So anyway, gang, that's the lighting upgrade number 1. I've got several more lighting upgrades to get to, but we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.